The words hit the cold, echoing airport terminal like a quiet explosion, soft, trembling, but powerful enough to stop a rushing world. A lonely CEO named Marcus Hale, exhausted from red-eye flights and a life built on numbers instead of people, froze in place as the small voice tugged at the sleeve of his tailored coat. And when he looked down and saw a little boy with messy blonde hair, red-rimmed eyes, and a backpack too big for his tiny shoulders, something inside Marcus shattered, something he didn't even know was still breakable. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of simple miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more life-changing stories to the world. The boy stood beside a young woman, probably no older than 24, whose trembling hands clutched a worn-out stroller carrying a sleeping toddler. Her eyes carried exhaustion, fear, and a strength that hadn't been chosen but forced upon her by life. And before Marcus could ask anything, the boy repeated himself, as if the words were rehearsed, memorized, or said too many times already. "My daddy is in heaven, and mommy says we need help to get home." Marcus had heard thousands of pleas in corporate boardrooms, requests for funding, for partnerships, for mercy in a business world that rarely offered it. But no plea had ever felt like this. It wasn't strategic. It wasn't crafted. It was raw. Human. Painful. As people hurried past them, absorbed in their own deadlines and destinations, Marcus felt an unfamiliar pull inside his chest. For years, he had walked through airports trying to outrun memories of his own failures, the family he lost to ambition, the silence of a penthouse that echoed louder than any board meeting ever could. But today, because of one child's tiny voice, he stopped running. The woman introduced herself as Sarah Coleman, her voice carrying a polite shakiness. She explained that they had flown to Arizona for her husband's medical trial, a desperate attempt that came too late. Now, with the last of her savings gone and her husband gone with it, she was stranded in Chicago O'Hare Airport with her 2 children, a maxed-out bank card, and a grief too heavy for her young shoulders. Marcus listened, and as her story unfolded, the pieces clicked together like a puzzle he wished he didn't understand. Grief, responsibility, loneliness, he had carried them too, though in different shapes. Sarah apologized repeatedly for stopping him, as if kindness was something she didn't expect from strangers anymore. The sight of her trying to stay strong, the toddler sleeping without understanding the world had shifted beneath her feet, the little boy gripping the straps of his backpack as though holding himself together, this imagery carved itself into Marcus's soul. He did not plan what he said next. It came naturally, like breathing. "I can help." The words startled him as much as they surprised her. They walked together to a quieter waiting area where he bought them warm sandwiches and juice. Sarah tried to refuse, but hunger is honest, and her hands shook as she accepted the meal. The little boy, whose name was Noah, ate with the fierce urgency of a child who had learned too young that nothing was guaranteed. As they sat, Noah pulled out a small toy car, its paint chipped and wheels uneven. He pushed it gently along the metal armrest and whispered that it used to be his daddy's favorite thing to play with him. Marcus felt his heart not painfully. He had kept none of his daughter's toys after she and her mother left years ago. Maybe it was guilt, maybe denial, maybe fear of remembering. But watching Noah hold on so dearly to something so small made Marcus question every choice he had ever made. He asked where home was. Sarah said they lived in North Carolina, in a small rental near a church that had helped them before. The airline tickets to return had spiked in price last minute. She had tried everything, calling family, charities, even asking strangers for advice, but people were too busy, too skeptical, or too tired to care. Marcus wasn't sure why this family pierced through the thick armor he'd built over a lifetime. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was simply that their pain mirrored something inside him he had never dared to face. But somewhere inside that terminal, with luggage wheels squeaking, announcements droning, and strangers brushing past, Marcus made a decision that felt like stepping into a life he had once abandoned. He walked to the ticket counter, pulled out the black titanium card usually reserved for business class purchases, and quietly bought 4 tickets on the next flight to Charlotte. When he returned and handed the boarding passes to Sarah, she stared at him as if he had handed her air after drowning. She cried, not loudly, not dramatically, just soft, broken tears that held gratitude, guilt, relief, and mourning all at once. Noah hugged Marcus's leg, the way small children do when their hearts understand something their minds cannot yet explain. But Marcus wasn't done. He called his assistant and requested emergency delivery of necessities for the mother and her children, fresh clothes, diapers, warm coats. Within an hour, bags arrived. Marcus hadn't felt this purposeful in years. The corporate world had given him everything except meaning. Today, meaning found him. When their flight was called, Noah refused to let go of Marcus's hand. Sarah insisted Marcus didn't need to escort them to the gate, but he gently shook his head. Something inside him told him he needed to see this through. As they boarded, the toddler, Grace, woke and reached out tiny arms toward Marcus. He held her without thinking. She giggled, unaware of the storm that had carried her family to this moment. Her innocence melted away the cold corners of his heart. Once they reached their row, Marcus handed Grace back and knelt before Noah, whose blue eyes shimmered with emotion far too deep for his age. Noah whispered again. Daddy used to say strangers can be angels if you look closely. Those words wrecked Marcus. He promised Noah everything would be okay. And for the first time, he believed it. After they parted, Marcus did something he hadn't done in a decade. He sat in an empty gate area, head bowed, and cried. Not just for Sarah. Not only for Noah. But for himself. For the years wasted chasing numbers. For the family he let slip through his fingers. For the kindness he had forgotten he was capable of. He thought the story ended there. But life, much like grace, often continues beyond the moment we think is final. 3 days later, he received an email from a community pastor in North Carolina. Sarah had shared what Marcus did. And the pastor wanted him to know something. Marcus opened the attached photo. It showed Sarah and her 2 children standing in front of their small church, smiling for the first time in what seemed like forever. Grace was holding a tiny stuffed bear Marcus had bought her. Noah was holding his toy car in one hand, and a hand-drawn picture in the other. The picture was of Marcus, with wings. The pastor said Noah called Marcus the airport angel. Marcus's chest tightened so deeply he had to sit down. He realized then that what he had given wasn't charity. It wasn't money. It was hope. Something he had forgotten how to give and how to receive. That night, Marcus called his daughter for the first time in years. The conversation was rough, shaky, full of old wounds. But it was a beginning. And beginnings are sometimes the greatest miracles. Months later, Marcus visited the small North Carolina church. The children ran toward him with the pure joy only children can offer. Sarah thanked him again, but Marcus shook his head.